Welcome to Body Mind Healing. I'm Diana Lindsay. In our last unit, we talked about the need for us to take charge of our own healing. And in these next two units, we're going to be talking about one of our most important allies in that, our own intuition. In this unit, we'll look at how that intuitive sense can be developed, how we can calm ourselves to better hear our intuition through relaxing, and how the practice of meditation, particularly mindfulness meditation, can assist us in many dimensions of our healing. So let's begin with intuition. In the new doctor-patient relationship that we talked about in Unit 1, we saw that patients were now making their own treatment decisions. But what are they making these decisions on? Is there any evidence? For many conditions, there is evidence, and good evidence, that we can trust our doctors to inform us, and we can trust the drugs that are being suggested for us. But in many other cases, the evidence is not so good. It might be biased. It might be a small sample. It might not use a good methodology. There might not be a big enough sample as in a clinical trial. If the evidence in either case, whether good or bad, we still don't know whether that evidence applies to us as individuals. So when faced with all of this conflicting information, patients often rely on their own intuition. Now, Michael Lerner again said that intuition may seem like a weak reed on which to rely, but in fact there's a sizable scientific literature showing that intuition is a key factor in decision-making in business, science, the military, and many other fields. Because the key benefit of intuition is that it helps us draw on sources of knowing that we do not know that we know. Seymour Epstein wrote a paper called Demystifying Intuition that's on your reading list. He said that intuition is neither magical nor mystical. It's simply the recovery outside of awareness, primarily of tacit information acquired from experience, or less often responding to entirely new situations, according to the principles and attributes of the experiential intuitive system. So it's not just memory and an ability to access it faster, but it can also be something new. Let's see how this works. How do we experience intuition? Well, it might be a kind of gut feeling. We might feel it in our intestines, literally. It might be a popping up of an idea that we're pretty sure is all ours. It might be a voice. You might hear guidance. It might be a body sensation, just a feeling uncomfortable, an attraction or repulsion. But in any case, I'd like to consider that it's a gift from our unconscious and something worth considering. Now, we actually have something called intuition cells or neurons. I'm fascinated by intuition, and so I read a lot about it. Here's just some of the books that I've enjoyed. But one thing I really love about all the authors is that when they do talk about the marvels of intuition, they often use the phrase surprisingly good. Our intuition is surprisingly good at helping others. It's surprisingly good at complexity, and it's surprisingly good at detecting danger. I think that surprise is actually one element of our intuition. It takes us out of our rational experience and it offers something else. Our intuition was developed, and as we saw in our last unit, so much a huge part of what we experience as ourselves, because it helped us with social bonds. Now, this is helpful, and it's also not helpful. It's not helpful in the way that stereotypes can be reinforced, that memories can be reattributed to other things, that there are subliminal perceptions that we're not even aware of. It can be very effective, and it is the prime basis for helping us with social emotions and moral intuitions, but that can include pain, guilt, and embarrassment, which don't feel so comfortable. But it's very good about the expectation of reward under conditions of uncertainty. We give ourselves the optimistic feeling that even in this moment, we'll be able to get through. Humor also comes from this area because I think it helps recalibrate intuitive judgment. It helps us resolve uncertainty, if only for a moment. Blakesley, who wrote The Body Has a Mind of Its Own, says intuition is your capacity for quick and ready insight. The cells are called von Economo cells, after von Economo, and they're found in our frontal insulas and anterior cingulate cortex. We're born with 28,000 of them, but by the age of 4, we have a sense of our world, and so we have 184,000 neurons ready to quickly deliver that assessment and insight into the world up to us. But we continue to grow to 193,000 as an adults. Now, apes only have 7,000. So this is truly one of those areas that have helped humans become who they are. They are more numerous in the right brain, and we talked last time about how I really wanted to go find my way into that right brain, and this turns out to be one reason why that was a good search. Now, interestingly, we also have our neurons that are related to food in the insulas that map our visceral sensations, and they're quite polarized, eat or don't eat. So it happens that many of our social emotions can come in with that same kind of polar opposites. We love, we hate, we lust, we disgust, we trust, we distrust. And the polarity of that can, of course, be something that can trick us and fool us, and why our rational minds often have to intercede. So when is it less successful? We saw in the last unit that thinking fast, our brains deliver up a view of the present moment, and then often our rational mind will then step in to either intercede, to calibrate, or perhaps to make their own error. If it's habit-driven and not a result of something that is right in front of us now, it's very easy for us not to be perceiving the situation correctly. We will quickly deliver up what we know. If it's wishful thinking, we may not have a clear error. We may not have a clear thinking because we want something so badly, we don't look carefully at everything around us. There are many other ways that we can be fooled by perception. Our eyes themselves, just in the way they view things, will deliver us errors. And then they can be fooled by certain ways that our minds work. One is called an availability heuristic, which means we tend to think that something is right if it comes to us quickly. If our memories can deliver it up, that's what makes it known, popular, and correct. But that, of course, is not the case. There's an effect called the Einstellung, which is once something comes up, we want to settle there. And we want to go with that. And we also, I'm sure, have all experienced the overwhelm heuristic, which is if you give us too much of anything, we won't be able to really process it well at that speed. And an algorithm might do better than we do. But in my case, I felt it was critical to develop intuition. I felt that my own left brain and the brains of many, many talented researchers, scientists, and doctors had come up short. There was no cure for stage 4 lung cancer. And so I figured I needed to have another source, not the only source, but another source. And I wanted to develop my intuition around what was healing or not. So if you'd like to follow that with me, try very simply recalibrating yourself, understanding when your yeses and your nos come up. In a given moment, just think, what's your next step? Let it come up. Then think, will this reflection, conversation, activity help me find joy? Will it help my healing? Will it strengthen my will to live? Will I feel better? That is our rational minds reflecting on whatever the intuition has come up. If it's yes, then give it a try. And then observe, do I indeed feel better? And then listen for the body's feedback. What does the body say? If yes, do it again. If no, ask if you're saying no out of habit, you're too lazy to get off the couch and walk, or whether you feel it's a true feedback from your body. I found through this process that I could strengthen my own intuition around my own self-care. It could motivate me to eat well and to move well. I found that the healing mindset, that I called it, grew with practice. That as I stayed open, honest, I let myself be creative, that I could really, truly reap many rewards. And that it was incremental. So as support of family grew, it grew into friends who live far away, friends from my past. As I became strong physically, I became stronger emotionally and spiritually. And as my well-being built through love and joy and awe, I found that I could truly accept the situation I was in and find actually great pleasure in it. Each of those moments of intuition were like a dot, something I tried again. And it built over time, so that when I began, these were some of the areas that I started with, but I kept moving. So 3 years in, these were many of the things that my intuition had led me to. So take a day to follow your own intuition. Where does it lead you? Do you have any surprises? And look forward to seeing you in the next unit.